Yeah.
There we go. Okay. So everything on the live stream, everything is delayed anyway. Maybe.
Yep.
Okay. Now this one switches over and it's a is it spinning? It is. It's just everything is delayed. Okay. Oh. Pull this out of the way. Play. There we go. Better. There's basically a countdown timer running and then a bubble that is like spinning.
Yeah, it says going live soon.
Yeah, that should change in just a second.
Yep, there it is.
There it goes.
Yep.
2 minutes.
It's a little slow on my computer for some reason, but it's okay. I'm gonna close out some apps.
Yeah, we do this with our church now every Sunday.
Oh, nice. Right on.
Everything's online. Boom. Our music's online. That was fun.
Yeah.
I'm just closing out all my apps. All right, so here's what we're gonna do. We have a minute left. I'll switch over to the guests, and then we can all just intro us. We can start talking. We'll go for about 20 minutes or so, 25 minutes. Just talk, conversational, have a good time, and then towards the end, I'll just do a kind of a call to action. I'll turn off your video and do a call to action, and then we'll close it out with an outro that's like, "Thanks for joining us. Click here to subscribe." And then it lives on YouTube after that point, so I don't have to repost it. It'll just be there under live streams, so you can reference it back later on or post or whatever. 20 seconds left. Why is...
And I need to get it from USB mics. Those are nice. I don't know if that's USB, but
Yeah, this one?
they're nice.
Yeah, it's a Blue Yeti USB. Works fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
Works super well. Oh, that's why. Loop. There we go. And switch over. Good morning. How are you guys doing?
Good morning. How's it going, guys?
Good morning. It's a great day. Beautiful Friday.
Absolutely. Well, welcome everybody to another episode of BAS Bytes Live. We go live every Friday morning at 11 a.m. Pacific time. Playing around with some technology, so things look a little delayed. I apologize in advance. But thanks everyone for being here. We really appreciate it. And on today's episode, we've actually got a special guest, so I'll do some intros real quick, and then we'll get talking. So, Ed, do you want to introduce yourself to everybody?
Sure. So, Ed Vanderpool from Adventist Health West, out here on the West Coast. I'm an IT technical manager. Moved into management role after being an architect for several years for Adventist Health, and now I get to make them do the work for me. So, great to be here.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much for joining us. Matt, how about you?
Yeah, Matt Okuma. I am actually honored to be Ed's systems architect. Been working with him for quite some time, so super excited to have him here on the live stream with us today, Jeff.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks, Ed. We really appreciate you being here. And I know that, there's a lot going on, like a global pandemic and, things like that. So I appreciate you taking even just a little bit of time on a Friday morning to join us for a bit.
Yep.
Well, so as we get rolling into this, for anyone who's joined us on the live stream before, we like to have some kind of topic that we go through. And today, and thanks, Matt, for bringing this up. We're going to focus a lot on the healthcare industry. It's obviously a big deal right now because with a pandemic and a lot happening, everybody is affected, not just in the businesses they run as a small business owner, companies you work for, but everybody has a common thread in healthcare and how you interact with healthcare and things like that. So Matt brought this up, and so Ed, we're really happy to have you because I think it would be great to talk a lot about sort of industry trends overall, how things are playing out in the healthcare industry with a technology spin on it, of course. So, I guess I'll hand it to you for a little bit to talk a bit about what are you seeing right now? What are some of the big things that are kicking off in the industry right now?
So for us mainly, this whole thing's been crazy. I mean, for any industry, but for healthcare, we have just been blasted, of course. If you strip out kind of what's been happening over the last several months, and you look at kind of the changes that we've had to go through and kind of modify how we do business, we've had to, instead of just having a normal hospital with people coming in and out. We now are actually doing what's called kind of like a pop-up clinic in our parking lots because we just have so many people coming in, and not everybody can just walk right in, because if they come in and they're infected, then they're going to infect everybody in the hospital, which is a bad thing. So we've had to actually kind of tweak how we do business, and using some of our technology that we have with Cisco to be able to extend out our network, put them out into parking lots, put coverings over them, add power out there, so that we can actually have kind of an ingestion point where we can say, okay, well, this person doesn't have it, this person does, meaning COVID-19, and to be able to kind of segregate those so that we can not infect the people that aren't previously infected, but at the same time, hospitals have this extra kind of layer where we have to make sure that anybody that does test positive, we have to, escalate that up, and the government has to know. So we have all these checks and balances that we also have to go through as this is, happening. So it's been a challenge. It's been a huge challenge, especially for, our LA-based and kind of the Central Valley-based hospitals. They have just been beat up with a lot of people coming in.
I got to imagine, because in SoCal, I mean, specifically for California, Southern California is just generally the highest case count in the state right now, isn't it?
Yes. Yep, we definitely see it. It's interesting because for us, since we are more rural-based healthcare, if you were to talk to like a Sutter or somebody else like that, they would probably see a little more like in a Los Angeles area than we would, because we're a little further out. And the difference is we will see a massive amount more people in a Central Valley where they're not.
Okay.
So we get a lot of the immigration people, a lot of farmers, a lot of those type people that come in, and it's a bit of a more strain for us because, a lot of these people don't speak English. A lot of them have no idea what the heck's going on. Some of them have general symptoms, but they may or may not have COVID-19. And then it's to be able to isolate them is much more difficult as well. So we have several things that hit us that's a little different than some of the other companies.
Yeah, that makes sense. It makes a lot of sense. How has that had that influx? I mean, are you seeing these, especially with these kind of pop-ups, is the pop-up more focused on moving the technology you need and the assets you need outside to support people coming to the hospital because of social distancing and really for COVID, or is it a combination of that plus overfilling inside the hospital building itself?
Yes, it's actually both. Yeah, you nailed it. Because the reality is, we've had several. Right now, it's kind of tapering off. Thank God. But again, it's coming in waves. So we have had where we have a parking lot that's basically full, and a hospital that's full. So we're like, oh my gosh, and then we have to actually move people from that particular hospital to another hospital, whether it be ours or somebody else's, local. So we've had that where we've just been hit so hard, like for instance, our Lodi hospital. We've had several days that we were just way past capacity where we actually had to kind of move people around. So having the technology to where we can push it out into a parking lot has helped, because yes, we can see more patients that way. We can offset patients, and we can also do, again, more verification before they come into the hospital.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So kind of and we could talk about, I think, patient counts and things like that a lot too. And Matt, definitely chime in when you have whatever questions you've got
Yeah.
as well. Something I'm really curious about is from a technology aspect, and I don't just mean like networking type technology, but sort of in general, what have you seen has been the most impactful for you as far as like those outside hospitals, and like what are the biggest technology challenges you're faced with right now, dealing with this influx of patients, or as you say, you put it, sort of the waves that you're having to go through.
So for us, it's actually kind of a twofold. So the little parking lot things have worked great. It's interesting because right now we're on this kind of buildup of having mobile. So we're actually going mobile. So we're looking at that totally differently because we have so many rural areas that are so far out that people can't get into a hospital. So they either come into one of our clinics that's close and they blow the doors off that, and then we have to kind of push them down to a hospital, or they're just so far out that they can't make it. So our newest challenge right now is they're building a couple of those mobile kind of devices that, well, I should say trucks that have wireless built in, so they can do full EMR, they can do full checking, they can do all of the information gathering remote and be able to push that in so that if we find somebody that has COVID-19 or if they're showing more symptoms, we can actually direct them to a closer clinic that they may or may not have known about.
Oh, okay. And are those mobile units able to actually support them to some degree medically, or are they primarily more of like like an entry triage sort of thing?
They're more of an entry triage.
Okay.
Unfortunately, they're not big enough for actually housing people. They can do short term, very, very short term because they usually have a couple beds, but yeah, they get filled up pretty quick. So more of a triage, but that's alleviating some of that because a lot of those people may have, kind of symptoms that are in line, and then we can test them out there or go through whatever medical needs they need. They may not even have to go into a clinic or a hospital. So that alleviates that strain right off the bat.
Gotcha.
Yeah, Ed, I had a couple questions around just general infrastructure and how it's changing. Like, I think, at least working with you, knowing that you guys got sprung pretty hard, like I think every customer that I had where people are all working from home now. And just wanted your take on that, on how that experience has been going and anything that caught you off guard. If you could walk through any of those for other people to get your take on how you addressed it and what additional capabilities or long-term changes might be for your normal office type workforce. So I know you have a bunch of them too.
Yeah, yes, sure. So it's funny because, and I know that several other, colleagues have run into this, but when this first hit, I'll give you the first hit and then I'll walk through kind of what we did. But when this first hit, we were like, okay, so, everything's fine. It's like a Thursday, life is good. And then we get the call Thursday night. Hey, by the way, COVID-19 is here and we need everybody out of the office Friday. Okay. Great. We just got this beautiful new office, so I'm talking about corporate wise, and so we're like, okay, so we got to push everybody out. Thank God we used Cisco. I'm just saying that, truly, because we didn't actually have to do any.
Everyone, I promise we did not ask him to say that, but thank you, Ed. We appreciate it.
True, but in working with Matt and team and building out the infrastructure, we did not obviously build it for this. We weren't thinking, oh, we're going to have several thousand people that are going to be out of the office tomorrow. At any given moment. So we had that. People actually went home. They pretty much the feeling for them, besides having like the bigger monitors, the desk, and maybe the better internet, because some places are remote. Their overall experience was good and it was solid. And the only thing that we have to do now, because of that, because this is, we're not sure when this is going to end, when this is going to change. Obviously, it'll never be business as usual from the beginning. So different things are happening. But for us, we have kind of an active, passive kind of general system. It's been handling the load. We can basically grow as many as we need to with that particular system. But if there's any issue, any power failure, or any kind of disruption, we get impact. We basically knock several thousand people offline, boom. And then, yes, they can come back in, but then you've got that certain amount of time where they're offline. So we're going to be working with Cisco and team to basically make that more of an active to where we won't have that problem. That's really the biggest thing that we've learned through this whole process is not that we didn't build well, not that we're not using the right equipment or the right software, but it's more of a, hey, you know what? We now need this 24/7, where before, yeah, we'd have a part of our workforce that may need to go remote. Okay, and if they got bounced every now and then, no big deal, right? But now we've got everybody that's home, that's actually supporting the patients and the infrastructure for those patients. So now it's become critical to where we're like, no, we got to be 24/7, and this thing really can't go down. So that's one of the biggest things we've learned from this.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a trend that we're seeing, and having a lot of conversations with customers around just taking the remote workforce sort of to the next level with like a premium work from home experience. So I know Cisco's super focused on bringing new and exciting different things to the market to deal with however anyone wants to work now, right? And just having that available if all of a sudden something else comes up where people need to shift quickly, just so there's a level of business redundancy there for access. And I think the other thing that I'm seeing people now reaching out to is, now that a good portion of the workforce is remote, that can be, there's a whole new threat landscape. So users are at home now, So I think that, and I think we're definitely geared up. I think you've heard we did an acquisition of Thousand Eyes. It is complete now,
Yes.
right? Which I think will give us some great visibility into that end user, even more than we have now, when they're connecting and things like that, because you need to be able to now troubleshoot an end user's connection, essentially, if that's where your workforce is. And I think having tools like that to actually see what experience the user's getting and helping say, hey, we gotta revamp your home network, we gotta send you a premium device, maybe a hardware device, cellular backup, something. I think we have a lot of neat things to deliver on that, and looking forward and excited to see how that changes.
On that note, I'm actually kind of curious about this because I've read, we've all been seeing a lot of chatter out there, just in any publication, about all the industries that have embraced some or multiple forms of remote workers, obviously, for the last 6 months or whatever months it's been. I don't know, 6 months? Has it been a year? I have no idea. I feel like it's been a year. I don't know. I don't mean to be light of it, but it feels like it's been forever.
Yes.
For Adventist specifically, but really the industry in general, what have you seen as the overall adoption of a remote workforce, in all parts of the business? I mean, obviously, healthcare staff have to be in a building for the most part, clearly, other than the remote clinics or mobile things, whatever else. They have to be next to somebody to do their job. For the rest of the organization that runs operations to actually make the business run, how have you seen, in general, the adoption or the use of remote workers? I have to imagine that businesses that, contact center businesses, we have, obviously a number of companies we work with at Cisco that, whether they're insurance companies or financial services, the bulk of their employees are call center based. That seems like a relatively easy thing when you're not saving lives to be at home. But I have to imagine my brain wants to tell me that that's a lot different for a healthcare industry, but I'm really curious, is it that different? Have you seen?
So it really isn't. The irony that, obviously, like you said, doctors, nurses, staff that actually physically interact with patients. But here's the caveat to that. So the caveat to that is that now, and you'll see this in any healthcare, now more of the norm for the initial, talking to a patient is done remote. It's done on a Zoom call, a WebEx, a whatever, right? So that has gone from, that's kind of nice to have in our hospitals. It's a great, thing. Maybe 5 people use it a month, one of our hospitals, to where now it's like everybody uses that. That's your initial call. So your initial visit, whether you have, broken finger, during this whole pandemic, has been, you do a video call, they do all the assessment via the video call, and then they go in. So it totally change. And plus, healthcare, we're usually about 10 or 20 years ish behind. We're a little slow to adopt. Um, so working from home for us, if I went back 6 months, 8 months, however long it's been, and I went back and they'd be like, well, yeah, we'll have a small, tiny contingent part of you guys work from home. Sure, no problem, and it'll be once a week, maybe twice a week for if we feel good. And then this hit, and it's like, wow, that changed everything. So now healthcare as a whole is like, oh, I guess we can work remote. We can actually assist patients remotely. We can actually get patient care up and actually level it to a higher standard when it's remote. So that's the biggest thing I've seen is that before this was like taboo. It's like, well, yeah, you can work from home. Yeah, you might see one or two patients via remote as a doctor or nurse, to where now that's normal. That's just part of your day. And yeah, you'll see somebody that you really need to see, but they figured, I don't have anything like specifically quantified, but I've heard that quite a few of those is like if you look at 100 patients, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's say you have 100 of those at your first touch is via remote. You're going to see 20% of that won't need to come into the hospital. They may just need to change something or tweak something or whatever it is. So that right there, right off the bat, it's helping the patient because they don't have the pain and all that to go into the hospital and go through it. But it's also helping the hospital where we can actually have 20% more physical people in a hospital. So it's just nice to see technology and healthcare catching up to each other, and being able to be used in such a good way.
Yeah, I like that. By the way, just a quick pause for everyone who's watching. We've got a few people joining us on the live stream, including, I think most of us know, Ryan Parker. Ryan, thanks for joining, man. Really appreciate having you. For anybody else who's watching live, if you have any questions you want to ask Ed or the panel in general, just drop them in the comment section. We'll happily get to them. And if we don't get to them in this live, then we can definitely go back afterwards and address any questions or comments you have or any input that you want to share with us. Matt, what else do we want to talk about? I know I've got a lot of other things kind of rolling in my mind, but I don't want to monopolize the conversation here.
No, I think it's good. It's great to hear from Ed and just his perspective. I think we've done several of these live streams as we kicked them off, with our opinions and our things. But it's great to hear from a customer live that's actually going through it. I know I've been hand in hand with him and the other people at Adventist helping them, which has been, a good experience and partnership. The partnership, I think, really shows, in the fact that we are completely virtual, but still, we're still there. We're still solving business problems together, which is really exciting. Feels really good that, we have that thing, that we had that connection, and looking forward to keep solving things. I'm confident that we have a lot of new stuff coming out. I think Cisco was geared well. We have so many different types of technology that can be shifted or tweaked to solve business problems as the businesses shift, which they totally have. And I think we're geared so well to shift just because we have such strong collaboration. We have strong, networking heritage, and then security now is just growing by leaps and bounds. We just had a phenomenal year in security, and I think we made the investments in the right space. And I'm excited to see how the ability to work remote or be remote increases, just customers' overall satisfaction, just how they feel being able to work when they can, not travel as much potentially, and things like that, get closer to their families. So it's exciting to enable that for customers.
Yeah, definitely. So as we kind of wrap up for the day, Ed, I want to come back to you for just a couple minutes. Indy, if you were to look into your magical crystal ball there in beautiful San Francisco, it looks like you're in right now. I'm kidding. I know you're not.
Exactly.
I love the background. If you were to look at sort of into your crystal ball and kind of think out 6 months, 7 months, what do you see? What do you I don't mean specific technology necessarily, but what do you sort of expect to see more happening in and around the healthcare industry as far as how technology and the types of technology that are going to be leveraged? What do you think is going to be the next thing that is really adopted or looked into by companies to make sure they can continue to adjust to this COVID world that we're in right now?
Yeah, so actually, that's a great question because not looking at the technology side, but for a long time, healthcare has been very proprietary. Very, we build out our data center. All of our data lives in that, right? To where, really, even in the next 6 months to a year, I see not only us but in other companies really looking to embrace that cloud. Um, you know, being able to move a lot of data into a cloud, whatever that is, whether it's a Microsoft, Oracle, I mean, I don't care. But so that rolls back into, so if you're looking at that, if you're traditionally have a very secure network that's, basically in-house, all of your data is in-house, little bits and pieces are outside, but most of it's in-house. And you start looking at outside, your biggest thing is what? Security. Not how to get it there, because that's easy. I mean, I wouldn't say easy, but it's fairly, it's ubiquitous now to where, if I need to move this file from A to B, piece of cake. I don't care where it is.
Yeah.
But it's the security of that, because obviously we are held to a much higher standard when you're looking at patient data, where you need to have that fully encrypted anywhere it is, and even at rest. So if you're going to be putting this thing up in the cloud, which I definitely see a big shift for us to finally get to that, start looking at the cloud for certain aspects. So that's the biggest thing that I see, and the security wrapped around that.
Yeah, that makes sense. And it seems to be, like you said, Matt, it seems to be the thing we're noticing everywhere, which is there's investments in technology for all types of companies, especially in healthcare. And even more so since healthcare buildings, hospitals specifically, have to stay open and have to continue to iterate. There will be a refresh or purchasing of new, campus traditional route switch type gear. But the reality, I would say the reality is a larger investment seems to be moving more and more towards the security aspect, whatever that happens to be, because there's a lot of things in that portfolio, not just at Cisco, but other companies too. So it seems to be the trend overall is like, how do we, in a creative way, secure the things that we need to secure, not just by buying like a firewall or an IPS, but how do we do things like on the Cat 9K as an example, using like Stealth Watcher, encrypted traffic analytics, or other technologies like that solve problems, but in different ways that don't just have to be, I bought a box and I put it here and now things are protected, because it's got to be so much more, intricate than that, especially these days.
Yeah.
Right on. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Ed. I really appreciate it. And Matt, thanks for being on again. This is a really cool conversation. For the audience watching, we go live here on BAS Bytes every Friday at 11 a.m. Pacific time. We may be changing that to at 11:30, a different time, but we'll definitely publicize that on the YouTube channel so it's available to everybody. We would love, if you like the video, if you like this live afterwards, hit the thumbs up. It helps the channel out a lot. There's a little bell logo down over here someplace. I don't know. It's right down here. Click on that if you want to get notifications of new videos we post. Matt and a lot of the other engineers in the team post new videos on a regular basis. And then hit subscribe if you want to keep up with us. Guys, anything else you want to part with before we drop?
I just want to say thanks to Ed for joining. It was a great conversation, and I really appreciate it.
Cool. And I want to point that back to you guys. Thanks for having me. This has been fun. Great time.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for joining. Everyone have a good afternoon and enjoy the weekend. We'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
All right, bye. See ya.